You are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church. And then St. Paul says, as we heard today, I have run the good race. Bishop Robert Barron points out this really helpful juxtaposition of Peter and Paul. Peter, St. Peter, representing the rock, the foundation, the solid basis by which we put our faith in Christ. That's absolutely essential. And through that, Peter is a symbol of the structure and foundation of our universal church, the dogmas which are unchanging, the truths that we hold on to, the foundation and infrastructure, the things that with apostolic succession create a stability for us. Paul, on the other hand, not opposite but balancing, is that sign of the church on the go, the church on mission. He made a number of missionary journeys, have run the race with a sense of urgency, the importance of being on the move, proclaiming the gospel to the furthest corners, not just in one location stable, but to the furthest corners of the planet, and still today, and dealing with issues as they come along, and the development of dogma. You know, when we consider the writings of St. Paul, he was responding to issues that were coming up that had not been foreseen, but he, based on the principles of our faith, he applied them to certain circumstances and helped us to develop our dogma of who we are as Christians and what it means to be a Christian in the world. And of course that continues as the church reflects on contemporary issues and how we apply these eternal truths in these circumstances that never came up before. And so we see a juxtaposition of stability but also flexibility. That's an important balance for our church, stability and flexibility. But both are absolutely necessary. Sort of like the vaulted arches you see in like medieval cathedrals, especially in France. Outside they have the vaulted arches, but even in this church you see those, the vaulted ceiling, and how one beam puts pressure against the other beam, and it's in that pressure that the church finds its true strength. So part of it is stability and flexibility working together, and that creates a stronger church for the whole mission, because we still are responding to things in our day and applying fundamental and eternal truths. But so it is in our personal spiritual life. We need to have consistent routines, be rooted in our faith, but also adapt to different situations as they come along. Here's a perfect example of what we're facing in this coronavirus. You know, we've had to pivot and change the way that we celebrate Mass. I mean, we can't come every single time we want to. And so with that, if we aren't careful, our faith can grow weaker because we'll give it less attention because our structure, our foundation, our routines have been disrupted. Well, how do we make sure we keep that structure but switch the routines up? How do we make sure that prayer, a connection with Christ every single day of our lives, and making something more of it on Sunday, how do we do that during times of coronavirus when you can't just show up to Mass on Sunday? And that is a responsibility on each one of us as part of the living stones that make up the building of the church here and throughout the world. And I think it's happening, but there's a risk, there's a risk of that, and each of us has to make sure we respond to that risk and build it up. And I think the example of Peter and Paul still have our fundamental truths, our fundamental foundation of faith, but adaptable to any situation. And that flexibility and adaptability is something very unique to the human being, that we as among all in the animal kingdom are of the most adaptable to any situation. I mean, we can live in the winter and we can live in scorching heat. Human beings can survive anywhere on the planet and in any situation. It's really quite remarkable. So may we see in these two saints today that structure and adaptability, the church foundational and the church on the move, so that we can see in our own spiritual lives that we're called to be rooted in our faith, but also flexible to make sure that we live the gospel in every situation.